I think the last video messed up, so we're going to try that over. This is Shaz Barmberg, reading To the Ramparts by one Ralph Nader. We are on page 23, chapter 1, second, third paragraph, fourth paragraph down. If the Democrats want intellectual heft to rebut the craven objections of the corporatist think tanks and trade associations headed by bosses making big time pay themselves, they're making big time. They cannot do better than to... I already read this, so that was my second go around. I had that in my head. They cannot do better than to refer to the work done by the Economic Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. I just love this type of writing. If the Democrats want intellectual heft to rebut the carpeting, so what do we want? We want intellectual heft. Because what do we have to do? We have to rebut the craven objections of the corporatist think tanks. So if we want the gumption, the balls, if we want the... What is intellectual heft? Well, I guess that's research, I guess. So if we want info to oppose objections, that's funny, you're opposing objections, to rebut the objections to... We'll just say oppose, we'll simplify that. Corporatist think tanks and trade associations. And so we have a modifier, corporatist, but these are think tanks. Not the corporations themselves, but the think tanks that I guess they employ in trade associations, which is like the... What is it? The fucking... those corporate, every town has one, the Chamber of Commerce and shit. Headed by bosses making big time pay themselves. The heads of companies do make a lot of money. But we're not talking about the corporations, we were talking about the corporate think tanks and trade associations. They cannot do better, and because this is back to the Democrats, if we want the intellectual heft to rebut the rebuttals. So we can't do better than, if we want that, to refer to the work done by Economic Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. So, like, you have a whole paragraph just to introduce the Economic Policy Institute. And it's an interesting way to make your argument. It's very convoluted in the sense it's not clear language. But so, yeah, Economic Policy Institute, what about them? More income for the poor means less child and family poverty, which means less reliance on federal outlays for the poor to survive. What I liked the other day I came up with was, he's talking about raising the minimum wage, more income for the poor, and then he's talking about all the benefits of that. It's like, instead of fighting the wars and trying to end our imperial wars of aggression, we instead work on VA treatment, which is honorable, noble. We need to treat our veterans better. But to focus on that and then just say, look, the more money we put into the VA, the more soldiers can get. And then you start listing numbers. You could have that conversation forever. And I don't know if this is a conversation we should be having, or if this is something that maybe is more of symptomatic of a larger systemic issue. Is my question so far. And then the convoluted way he makes his arguments. The big companies, for example, Walmart, take advantage of federal aid, steering some of their employees to food stamps, Medicaid, and housing and energy assistance programs. It's not good. As Terrence Heath noted in an opt in The Nation of Change, so all of us are subsidizing the wealthy owners and executives of Walmart, McDonald's, and Target. But we don't have to shop at these companies. That's what I'm saying, is that like a market solution is like, you want to regulate this problem away, well, what if we just boycott the shit out of them until they fucking act right? The power is in the hand of the consumer, I would imagine, because we're colonized at the cultural level where we don't even know what powers we have. And then we have these Democrats over here using that, the fact that we're culturally colonized, so they're using that lack of identity that we have about ourselves and our condition, and to try to corral us into the Democratic pen, which he stated from the outset. At least they tolerate unions. They're the lesser of two evils. The whole book is going to be an argument how to push us back into that pen. That's interesting. Where's it at? Yeah, so that's why I just showed that. You don't need Ralph Nader to raise the minimum wage. We just need an organization of fucking strikes and boycotts. Just hit him with the fucking... We have all the power we need. That's what it is. That's what Ralph Nader said. We need to do this, this, and that to win elections. He's just justifying electing Democrats. We could do what they're asking or what they're offering. Well, let's check at the very end. What can we do on our own? And what do we need representatives? And then that'll be the platform of the third political party. Is the shit that you actually... Why? Because otherwise you just make shit more complicated. Let's legislate as least as we need to, I think, is a common sense solution. You want to parent as least as you need to. You don't want to be a fucking helicopter parent. You want a helicopter government. A 2012 report by the respected National Employment Law Project, NELP, titled Big Business, Corporate Profits, and the Minimum Wage, said that the majority, 66%, of low-wage workers are not employed by small businesses, but rather by large corporations with over 100 employees. The 50 largest employers of low-wage workers are mostly in strong financial position. And note that this finding by NELP, the top executive compensation averaged $9.4 million in 2011 at these firms. This means that the bosses, before taking a lunch on January 2nd, made more money than a minimum wage worker makes in a year. Talk about the corrosive effects of inequality. The top 1% took 93% of the nation's income growth in 2010, according to Holly Sklar of Business for a Fair Minimum Wage. So my only argument is this is good research. I'm glad he did it. I will now take it and claim it as my own. But are you telling us the best way to solve this? Or are you just wasting our time? Is what I find a lot on the left. Is tilting at windmills, wasting time, yelling and arguing about emotional triggers and shit that doesn't really matter. They're trying to unify you as a class around your identity of poverty in order to vote Democrat. Your identity as African American to support Barack Obama. These politicians, they only look at people as categories. But it's like, yeah, income inequality is shitty. How much can we take care of on our own as consumers and organized citizens? That's what it is. They don't want us self-aware, and they don't want us organizing ourselves, because then the Democrats are no longer needed. And these are bureaucrats. The Republicans are the assholes who want to take from everyone else. The Democrats are the assholes who apparently just want to justify their lifestyle. It's like, we don't want to be like the richest people, but we do want to fucking kind of be in charge. They're the ones who want power in this. Easy, interesting. I guess those are the two extremes of human behavior. We'll see. But anyway, so anything we can do on our own. Income inequality is a terrible thing. Not a terrible thing, but it seems a little fucked up. Internally, just morally, it seems wrong for someone to have so much, someone to have so little. I think we proved that as children. So, but we just need more awareness of what the world actually is in its current state. That's what it is. People don't realize how fucked up the world is. If you just lay everything out openly, transparently, I think people make the right decisions as far as pushing capital where it should go. And that's what open markets do. Enlightened business leaders are ready to support the Democrats on this minimum wage increase initiative. Years ago, in 2012, Jeff Long, a senior vice president of Costco, gave the obvious reasons that the retrograde corporatists ignore. At Costco, we know good wages are good business. We keep our overhead low while still paying a starting wage of $11 an hour. Our employees are a big reason why our sales per square foot is almost double that of our nearest competitor. Instead of minimizing wages, we know it's a lot more profitable for the long term to minimize employee turnover and maximize employee productivity and commitment, product value, customer service. This is a list I'm giving you, a list of things that we know it's a lot more profitable for the long term in order to maximize. And the last one, company reputation. The starting wage at Costco in 2017 was $13. That was a good plug for Costco, dude. Good job, Nader. But again, are we going to really solve this problem by just cherry picking people just to legislate it? Or is there something else going on here? Is there not enough competition in that market to allow the oligarchs, the largest people, to fucking shut everyone else out? If a mom and pop could survive, if we had an atmosphere that supported business from the ground up, maybe they would introduce the competition in order to push wages up. Because then you can choose to shop at a mom and pop or at a corporate store. Back in the day, I used to always try to shop at small little companies, but now there's less and less of them around. Maybe we should just stimulate our economy from the bottom up. Same way we could have done with the housing crisis. Keep people in their homes. You didn't have to bail out the banks, you could bail out the people. Just transfer the power and then have the banks modify the loans, try to keep people in the homes. But I don't know, I guess we don't believe in people enough to help them in the current culture. I'm being helped. Someone believes in me. I don't know if it's a state of New York or if it's a private profit, non-profit. Anyways, back to the shows. Enlightened business leaders. Oh, fucking A. I just did that Costco thing. I remember that. Those in the corporate oligarchy who oppose a higher minimum wage have no moral standing whatsoever. Many of the nation's corporate... I don't know, I might oppose it. What if I thought that there's a better market solution for it? There's a reason to oppose it. You can have the same desired outcome. We want people to be able to make a living off of whatever job they choose. At the bottom of society, if you're willing to work, you should be able to provide for yourself a living. It's going to solve a lot of crime problems. That's just common sense. What do you do with the people who fall through the cracks? They become combustible. That's the whole concept of any of our myths about zombies or vampires the other. The one individual who, once it turns into a monster, can cause a lot of havoc. Which is why you create a society that doesn't allow people to turn into monsters at the bottom of their society. I was in the fucking shelter last week and a guy I didn't hear it, but the roommate was like, "Hey, yo, you hear that guy asleep?" I was like, "Nah." He was like, "Yeah, he was talking about killing people. He was talking about some shit. If I ever find you, if I get you." And he was going through some shit in his dreams. So I was like, I'm glad I didn't hear that. They're my business. Not our business. Who knows who he is? Hopefully he gets his peace. But the shelter, I think people are trying to make it. Because otherwise you could be a lot of different places. It's not like very few people, unless you see them a little crazy or really off, have no family, no friends. When you're in the shelter, you're trying to do it the right way, I think. You're trying to get away from bad influences. For me, just clear my head, check out the system, learn about the nonprofit services, the homeless services in New York. It helps you adjust the whole picture when you see a homeless person. You're like, all right, I understand what your options are, what's actually going on. Taking an audit, living my politics, taking an audit of society. Chad, you're never going to finish this. Those in the corporate oligarchy who oppose a higher minimum wage have no moral standing whatsoever. Many of the nation's corporate giants pay no income tax, or very little, far less than a cab driver. Between 2008 and 2013, GE's effective tax rate was 9%, despite earning over $34 billion. GE paid no federal income tax for several years prior to 2008. It is hard for companies to make record profits, pay executives record pay, and spending trillions of dollars on unproductive stock buybacks to enhance their own compensation packages to have any credibility on the subject. I don't know. I'm all about, let's see what's the most effective way to get that living wage. Maybe it is through legislation. Let's look at their side. But are you talking about revamping the whole tax code, Nader? Because that's what we're really talking about. If we want to dig into the logic of this. Yeah, they're going to pay no income tax, very little, blah, blah, blah. But then why are we talking about minimum wage? Why is that? You're dropping a bombshell. It's like back when I was talking about you're trying to get us money for the VA. But I want to talk about ending the wars of aggression. And now you're using evidence that the wars were illegally waged, that George Bush lied to us, to support your money for the VA. It's like, whoa. The VA is important. But George Bush lied to us to get us into Iraq? That's a walking on-earth war criminal? That guy he fucked up a lot of the world. It's time to go to your room. Time out. It's punishment time. You gotta fucking put that guy in jail. He's still walking around the earth painting watercolors and shit. It's like, nah, dude. Everyone still knows what you did. No one has the balls to say it yet. So now it's been said. Now shit's gonna start to happen. Blah, blah, blah. Where am I? Oh, right there. I am not relating to this section that we're reading at all. The Democrats should have enacted legislation for a higher minimum wage during Obama's 8 years. Instead, startling as this may seem to readers wearing rosy spectacles, Obama kept aggressively lowering his estimate of the dollar amount needed for an eventual minimum wage boost. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, why are you writing like this, Nader? Because that's not how I'm going to try to write. I'm going to try to be very direct and sincere, if comical, and also fucking, whatever, simplistic. But sincerity, like, Democrats should have enacted legislation for a higher... What is this fucking should? It's like, they don't believe in that. They just talk. That's the worst, is they talk about it and they don't do it. So, and then it says, wearing rosy spectacles. You're the one who fucking... The whole beginning of this book is that let us not lose sight that the Democrats are better than the Republicans. And then you're willing to trash them this bad. It makes, like, what type of man are you? What type of person are you? Just be who you are. Be who you say you are. Keep that company. Keep those values. You're saying, like, our values are over here. The Democrats' track record and values are over here. But because they give us lip service and tolerate, what is that line? At least they tolerate trade unions. Come on, can't you see how trade unions themselves might become a power hierarchy? There might be a good reason why both parties have to interact with them a certain way. Everything's power politics and dynamics and power structures and hierarchies, and you go in with a goal and you try to achieve that objective, but from the outset you say, nope, this is the correct answer, now let us go explore the truth. But never beyond the fucking assumptions of our first assumption, which is the correct answer. It's the same thing with my friend. She was writing this paper for someone, contrast fucking Friedman and Keynes or something like that. And it was like, there's more to life than that. There's more to economic theory than those guys. But you weren't allowed to step outside that box, that argument. You can only argue those two. Anyways, that was all of this is good emotions. In his 2013 State of the Union speech, Obama said, let's declare that in the wealthiest nation on earth, no one who works full-time should have to live in poverty, and raise the federal minimum wage to $9 an hour. The American people want the federal minimum wage raised to $9 an hour. I'm Barack Obama. My Obama sometimes is okay, it depends. It's more of a feeling. Wait a minute. In 2008, Obama campaigned to have a $9.50 per hour minimum wage by 2011. In 2013, he said he would settle for $9 by 2015, going backward into the future. Yeah, Barack Obama is a piece of shit. I've known that. You've known that for a while. You're going to take a whole book to tell me that? Come on. Again, you're still going to try to keep us in the Democratic Party. Barack Obama put the Democratic fucking National Committee, whatever, their organization structure, he put them in debt $20 million. That's why they relied on Hillary. Hillary had the money. Barack Obama is not a good human being. Apparently, it didn't matter to Obama that at that time, the U.S. had the lowest minimum wage of any major Western country. Australia's was nearly $15, France's was over $13, and the Canadian province of Ontario's was $10.25. All of these countries also had health insurance free for all. It didn't matter, as I mentioned, that 2/3 of low-wage workers in our country work for large corporations such as Walmart and McDonald's, whose top CEOs make an average of $10 million a year, plus benefits. Nor did it matter that corporations like Walmart have had to pay workers much more in places like Western Europe than in the United States, where these companies got their start, and that they've still made good profits where the minimum wage is higher. I just don't like the writing style. There's no reason for me to keep arguing about it. It's interesting. Thank you for your opinion and for an update about wage standards around the world. Haven't you noticed how few workers there are now in big box chain stores compared to years ago, Well, one Walmart worker today does the work of two Walmart workers in 1968. A blessed 1968. If only we can go back to the time when the Democratic Convention, we can beat you who didn't agree with us in the hedge with billy clubs and drag you off to jail for protesting. The Democrats love beating their protesters. Under the Obama, they beat the fucking Occupy Wall Street. And in why would you even bring up that year? That was not a good look for fucking Democrats. That is called a doubling of worker. I said this though before too. I said, what did I call it? I said it's an efficiency dividend. There's an efficiency dividend. Technology has increased the productivity. Technology is shared by all, and that's the inheritance of all. But then that goes into a basic guaranteed income, basic standard income, your equity that you earn just for being a human being. Maybe when you turn 18, 20, here's 20 grand, go fuck off. Make your life how you will. Then open up the markets, open up the competition, keep our fucking thriving economy and this and that. And then if we're more organized, we can direct our intention towards the values that we feel are going to benefit this planet, towards environmentalism, pacifism, education. Well, our capital is restrained within these power structures. We could, with more organizing, choose where we want our money and our attention and our energy to flow, and then that'll grow the future. Then we identify and replace violent systems. These are all good ideas coming to me because I'm bored of it's because doing this, reading him and thinking, then reading him and thinking, I'm actually able to contrast my ideas with him and then try to extend beyond where I feel like he's failing me. So it's not just that I'm insulting some dude who likes to write on a typewriter and fucking collect newspapers, but I am trying to actually add to the discussion where I see it's lacking. So it says, he said back here, I'm reading the fucking notes in the margins now. Those in corporate oligarchy who oppose a higher minimum wage have no moral standing whatsoever. So I wrote, do they have any reasoning? You want to hear the other side. And then I also said, is this a system prone to creating oligarchies? So it's like, we're not dealing with a systemic change. That's what it is. Do we really want a world where we have to beg Democrats in order to fix everything? Democrats, fucking, can you raise the minimum wage? Democrats, can we? Or do we want to just organize as self-sufficient a world as possible? Where I'm being humble enough that there are certain problems with the commons we might need a government to solve. Like protect our national parks and do some other shit. But, anyways, there's some people outside. Some cute girls outside. And then on this margin I wrote, instead of demanding better treatment, let's make plans to escape the plantation. That's pretty much what I talked about here. Is we want less reliance on bureaucrats to govern. That's the whole anarchist idea, is that like democracy is cool. Maybe it's like a worst case scenario, but you want as many decisions affecting your life in your own hands as possible. And then you extend outwards as we need to protect the social sphere. So, technology probably will solve a lot of our governing problems for us if we can organize around the right values and put the right people in place. Well, we'll see. We don't want to ever... It's a slippery slope on vanguardism. The right people. The right system should promote the right talent. Meritocratic system. But then you need like compassion. I guess so in the system itself you have to build in the values of the world that you want. Where you don't have it too meritocratic, or else people slip through the safety net too. It's interesting. It's interesting living in a shelter and seeing people kind of at the bottom of society. These aren't the best jobs either. The people who work there are kind of dipshits, and the people who live there are kind of dipshits. But they're cool. They're sweet, and they have good hearts, I think, so far. Shaz, come on. That was it. Oh yeah, his opinion about Europe. Haven't you noticed how few workers there are now? I already said that. Yeah, many of today's Walmart workers. Yeah, 1968 is what set me off there. 1968. Oh, more fucking notes. Let me see what you say. The real question is, why are we forced to sell our labor to Walmart? And why are we forced to shop there? He wants to coerce Walmart to share. I want to encourage people to liberate themselves. The difference is the authority required to execute one's philosophy. Shaz doesn't give a fuck if you agree with me. Because if my truth is the truth, the bigger truth, closer to reality, then it's going to happen. We don't need to fucking force people to do the right thing. There's incentives in place already biologically that push you to do the right thing. The only problem right now is confusion. That's what someone told me the calmest person in the room is the one in charge. I don't know, or something like that. Or it's the strongest, or it's the coolest. Or... Instead of offering structural change, he's rationalizing buying votes. Nader, you are no longer relevant. I think after I read this page, I was like, fuck this dude. I got through like page 100, but yeah, that kind of like bummed me out now. I'm just skepticism rising is all. I'll read it, but more and more skeptical as I go. 1968. My collaborators and I got out on picket lines around the time of Obama's insufficient minimum wage proposal, and we demonstrated at shopping malls where Walmart had established giant stores. We noted that 1 million Walmart workers were making far less in inflation-adjusted dollars than what Walmart workers made in, you guessed it, 1968. In 1968, Walmart was run by its founder, the legendary Sam Walton, who started with one store in Rogers, Arkansas. Sam had to pay his workers wages that were worth much more than wages today because the law required him to do so. Yeah, this is just like very... I guess this is what the left is. This is what Democrats are. They're like, the law solves society. Society is cured through laws and prescriptions. Better rules and better rulers. The clenched jaw opposition to raising the minimum wage continues, led by a punishing U.S. Chamber of Commerce and a consortium of CEOs. Low wages paid by stores that service poor people eventually translate into less money spent in those stores, since the consumers are strapped. Internal emails leaked from Walmart in 2013 indicated the company's awareness of this vicious circle, and executives expressed concern about the spending level of the low to middle income shoppers and the company depends upon most. Now, it should if Walmart's so big that its own employees make up a big part of its bottom line, that's a problem. First of all, that's not a diversified economy. Also, if we're not dealing with a structural change of making too much shit, buying too much stupid shit, being emotionally triggered and propagandized into being good consumers as a cultural identity. We've created consumption as a cultural identity. You go to other cultures, in Zen Buddhism in Japan and Shintoism, Chinese and Taoism, and the Vedas and the sutras in India, and even Russian, and they have their Orthodox religion, and I don't know, I guess America, we created this culture pretty much artificial in the 20th century in order to keep our imperialism running, I guess, which acquires new markets and then profits off of exploiting those markets with an exchange and interchange with its own economy in those markets, which also we're gutting out our own imperial center now. We're cannibalizing ourselves the same way we would a banana republic. We're treating ourselves like our own tributary. Well, I guess because imperialism is becoming less geographically centered as it moves further into the financial centers and other centers of power. But the point is, Nader, Ralph Nader, if I can call you Ralph, is you're not talking about that. You are saying that if we pay the workers more, then everyone wins. That just doesn't seem logical to me. I think this is a violent system that's extracting resources and profits from disenfranchised people. And we only play a role in that system as workers and consumers here in America. Walmart being an international company, we have to deal with where it gets its resources and where it manufactures its goods, as well as the employers here and what we buy here. So this is a disingenuous argument, and I think you're smarter than that. So that kind of scares me. You're giving me an internal leaked memo. Internal leak memos. All right, the next paragraph. Where are all the customers and where's the money? Bewailed Cameron Geiger, a Walmart senior vice president. What Walmart's bosses themselves are coming to realize is that raising their workers' wages would lift the income of millions of workers, who in turn would spend some of that extra cash at Walmart stores. And is that really all we need, though, to create a utopia? That just seems too simplistic. All we have to do is raise everyone's wages, and then they will spend more money, and then the companies will make money. And that's the whole cycle of consumption and capitalism that's stripping our environment and all our natural resources. We need to conceptualize and then create holistic systems which are self-contained. It sounds complicated until you realize that that is what the earth is. A holistic self-contained system with a pattern and a logic to it. So the better we integrate as human animals into that pattern, into that logic, the less disturbances will cause. And that's at every spiritual tradition that has a heart of wisdom has that type of wisdom to fit within the natural pattern. That's what the Tao says, but it doesn't put a name for God. But then you have all these other religions, even monotheism, which identify as natural beauty, natural patterns with God. We argue about the power and all that other shit, but it's supposed to be, we have a tuning fork for human behavior, and it's called nature. I don't know. Those are ideas. What are this guy's ideas? What is he saying? Oh yeah, he's saying let's just pay workers more and then everyone wins. He's really, because that's something you can hold. Raising minimum wage, it's a fucking merit badge that you can put on your Boy Scout sash. That's what I find a lot on the left. Is a lot of the arguments come from them justifying their positions of power. They're just shitty workers. Grab 3 things on their desk. Look, well, I'm doing this though. I'm raising minimum wage and I'm doing like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm an environmentalist now. I'm relevant. You don't want to get kicked out of the speaking circuit. These people don't believe in anything. They don't. Anyone who's not willing to step back into that biggest structural point of view and actually propose or work on identifying and replacing violent systems. That's what it is. That's what it comes back to. Even H. Lee Scott, who was once Walmart's CEO, told company executives that the U.S. minimum wage of $5.15 an hour has not been raised in nearly a decade. It is out of date with the times. Our customers simply don't have the money to buy basic necessities between paychecks. A few years ago, feeling the heat from the environmentalist, high-level Walmart managers visited the late Ray Anderson, the pioneering CEO of Interface Corporation in Atlanta, the largest carpet tile manufacturer in the country. So now he's a pioneering. I don't trust your judgment to just trust that this is a good guy. I'll look into him. All of this stuff, the book is going to become a pile of notes with all of the references listed and all the ideas for the platform taken out. Only I feel like, we don't disagree so much on values. I don't really know if you share the values at heart, though, Nader, Ralph, or if you're just justifying your position within the culture of progressivism. Your job as Ralph Nader, your brand as Ralph Nader, who reads newspapers and types on typewriters. I think we might need a little bit more, but the values are, and this guy, so I'll look this guy up. Mr. Anderson was a corporate leader in taking recycling and reduction pollution to unsurpassed levels while regularly cutting costs, doing well by doing good. This is like a simplistic, this is how to save the world pitch. It's probably why you've gotten as far as you've gotten in life, Ralph. The cutting costs part attracted their attention. These managers are now among the executives running Walmart, and the changes they have made, reducing excessive packaging materials, saving on hot water and energy, and increasing recycling, have brought Walmart lower costs to public praise. So I'm not going to argue against this. Great, Walmart not being as dickish. That's cool, but I don't know if my future involves a Walmart. I would try not to shop there. So I don't know. Why is he even in the discussion? Walmart, they're doing great. I wouldn't cry tears if they fucking shut down. They have their own values and their own culture, and they're their own type of company, but that's a beautiful thing of like free markets and everything else. I think in a just world, you'd have a lot of options to Walmart. And that would incentivize them to change their behavior. People just, they would have to change the law for me to consider them a decent company. Yet, when it comes to their workers, euphemistically called associates, Walmart bosses can't seem to absorb the evidence that paying them $15 an hour would reduce the company's notoriously high worker turnover and improve productivity and morale. At the store level, all over the U.S., Walmarts are full of surveillance cameras monitoring not just the customers, but also the store's workers. Walmart security guards are stiffer than Army MPs. Come on, were you in the military? What are we talking about, Nader? What are we talking about? They are programmed to be the private police, keeping away peaceful demonstrators in so-called private shopping malls that were built on tax preferences and abatements. You just throw that line out again. We're talking about getting money for the VA, and then he'll just drop a bomb. Like, you're talking about monetization of fiscal land use policies, or financialization of land use. Basically, when I traveled around California, talked to a lot of local municipalities, we wanted to hit up all the counties. We hit up like 20 out of like 54, 56 counties in California. And so we talked to a lot of local municipalities. We're talking to cities. We're talking to like all the incorporated areas pretty much. And you just talk about land use policies. Why are there big box stores? Or why is Town Square, after Town Square gutted, the few ones that were thriving was surviving? Eureka, Humboldt has really nice Town Square. But a lot of these cities, they're just skeletons of cities. And so there's a municipal debt economy where Wall Street, or what you would call it, private equity or whatever. People who are going after municipal debt, extending them credit. Some would say it's a bubble. Some would say it's ready to collapse. That's how a lot of private works get put into public hands. In other countries, you have whole utilities, water and gas works being given over to private companies. But it starts with that credit, and by them starting to extend credit to the municipalities based off of their tax revenue. So is modern finance good? Probably. Is it good for local municipalities to be able to leverage their income to build more stuff, do more stuff for the public good? Because complex financial instruments are cool and all. At one point, are we taking advantage of this and that? That's a heavy discussion. I'm just off the top of my head trying to outline it. And he says, like, built on tax preferences and abatements. You can't just throw that out there. You can, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that, Ralph. Context for, like, what are we talking about? Like, we should look into the relationship between municipalities and their financiers and the privatization of public works that results in, or of things that belong. That's what the social aspect is, that we're supposed to protect social society. So certain things belong in the commons, and that's where government should step in to protect. But instead we're talking about minimum, and that's the thing, he's arguing about minimum wage, and then he drops a little detail, and what he's doing is he's making his argument by demonizing Walmart about their security cameras. When I care more about, that's the difference